All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're looking at a conflict that is shifting the entire global balance of power, and it's happening fast. I'm talking about the escalating war between the United States and Iran. What started as what seemed like a targeted strike is now spiraling into a crisis that could fundamentally change America's role in the world.
Think about this for a second. Just a month ago, a major U.S. strike took out a huge chunk of Iran's top leadership. And the story seemed pretty much over, right? All the experts were predicting revolution, a swift American victory, game over. But wow, in just 30 days, that whole story has completely flipped on its head. Now Iran is the one pushing back, expanding the war, and digging in for a long, bloody fight. So much so that the U.S. is now seriously considering putting boots on the ground.
This complete 180 forces us to ask a question that frankly would have sounded insane a month ago, but now you have to ask it. Looking at how things are playing out, can Iran actually win this thing? To even begin to answer that, we first have to get on the same page about what winning really means here. Because it's not what you think, especially when you're a country like Iran going up against a superpower. A victory for Iran doesn't mean they're going to be planting their flag in Washington, D.C. No, it's much simpler than that, and honestly, a lot smarter. For Iran, a win just means survival. It means outlasting the United States. It means making this war so unbelievably painful and expensive that America is finally forced to just give up and go home. So what does that kind of victory actually look like on the ground? Well, it's really built on a few key things. First, their leadership has to survive, and their command structure needs to stay up and running. Second, their huge stockpile of ballistic missiles has to remain a credible threat. Third, they absolutely have to prove that they can choke off the Strait of Hormuz whenever they want, basically holding the world's oil supply hostage. And finally, and this is the big one, they have to inflict a cost in American lives and American dollars that is just too high for the U.S. to bear. Okay, so that's Iran's playbook. Now let's flip the script and look at it from the American side, where this whole thing is rapidly turning into a strategic nightmare, a war with no good options. You know, we've all heard that old saying, Afghanistan is the graveyard of empires. The British found that out the hard way, the Soviets learned it, and yeah, after 20 long years, the United States learned it too. Some places in the world, they just refuse to be conquered. And this leads us to a really chilling question for anyone sitting in the Pentagon right now. Could Iran, with its rugged terrain and its fierce sense of national pride, could it become the new graveyard of empires? Just trying to imagine a ground invasion of Iran, I mean, it is a planner's worst nightmare. This is not the flat desert of Iraq. First, you've got the geography. We're talking mountain ranges crisscrossing the country, creating these perfect natural kill zones. Second, the logistics are just a disaster waiting to happen. Iran has already threatened to attack any country in the region that helps the U.S., which makes supply lines almost impossible to protect. And third, Iran's Revolutionary Guard. These guys have spent 40 years becoming masters of asymmetric warfare. Their goal isn't to win a big battle. It's to bleed an invading army dry with a never-ending guerrilla war. And this is really the most important thing to understand. Iran knows, for a fact, it cannot defeat the U.S. military in a straight-up fight. That was never the plan. The entire strategy is designed to make the price of this war, in blood and treasure, so ridiculously high that eventually the American people and the politicians back home will demand an end to it, just like they did in Vietnam and Afghanistan. But look, this isn't just about two countries. A long, messy war in the Persian Gulf is going to have these huge cascading effects on literally everyone. The shockwaves, well, they're already starting. To really grasp how big the global impact could be, we've got to talk about something called the petrodollar. For decades, the entire world has traded oil using U.S. dollars. Now, that might sound like a small technical detail, but it's not. It's one of the main pillars of American power. It forces the whole world to need and use the dollar. And this war, it puts that entire system in jeopardy. So if this war drags on, the fallout could be massive. The petrodollar system could start to crumble as countries look for other ways to buy oil. America's old allies, like Saudi Arabia, might start looking for new friends to protect them, maybe pushing the U.S. right out of the Gulf. You could see a brand new nuclear arms race kick off in the Middle East. Meanwhile, Iran's proxies, Hezbollah, the Houthis, they'd get a massive boost. And while America's completely bogged down and distracted, China gets a free hand to do whatever it wants in the Pacific. And all of that leads to the final domino, a huge backlash at home in the U.S. from soaring gas prices and casualties, which could force a retreat and shatter American credibility on the world stage. And hey, some countries are already cashing in. Just look at Russia. In only 1 month of this conflict, their oil revenue has literally doubled to $24 billion.
I mean, that's a huge payday, all thanks to this instability. But while Russia's making a quick buck, China is playing the long game. You can bet that Beijing is watching every single move, studying America's military, its political willpower, its weaknesses. Every missile the US fires, every aircraft carrier it ties up in the Gulf. That's a free lesson for China as it game plans what to do about Taiwan.
So, all of this brings us right back to the ultimate question, the one that's hanging over this whole mess. Are we watching the beginning of the end of the American empire?
You see, the whole situation is a strategic trap, especially for the US and its main ally, Israel, because their goals just don't line up. Washington wants a quick, clean win, or at least a way to get out without looking weak, but it's trapped. The options are an unwinnable ground war or a humiliating retreat. For Israel, though, this is existential. They need Iran gone as a threat, which means they're pushing for a decisive war that the US might not actually be able to win. And that leaves the United States with an absolutely impossible choice. If they pull out now, the world will see it as a sign that the age of American power is over. But if they get stuck in a long, expensive, unwinnable war, they could end up in the exact same place, just after a much slower and more painful decline.
And so we end right where we started. All the pieces are on the board, and the stakes could not possibly be higher. This is so much more than just a regional conflict. It's a fundamental test of American power, its credibility, and its endurance. And the final question is a stark one. Is this the war that finally marks the end of American domination?